Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Vanessa. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 30 of my spring 2025 new and anticipated releases. I have compiled a list of some of my NetGalley books that I have requested and that I'm super excited to get into this upcoming spring. And my list is going to go from literally the first day of spring, which is March 20th, all the way to the first day of summer, which is June 21st. All of these books are being published between that time frame. Some of them you will see that they've already been published, but they are being republished. So I'm going to be using the new pub date because it's coming out either traditionally published or with a new cover or something like that. Over on my YouTube community tab, I had asked if anybody was interested in seeing this video. An overwhelming percentage of people said yes, so here I am. And then I asked a follow-up question that was, would you prefer that I talk about the books in chronological order by publication date, or would you prefer that I split them up into genre and then talk about them in publication order? And it looks like it's kind of neck and neck currently. At the time that I'm filming this, just going in order of publication date is winning. I think I'm gonna go that route just because I think it's also really fun that you don't know necessarily what genre is gonna come next. It just goes by whatever publication date comes first, and it can be like kind of a mixed bag, kind of more fun, and maybe keeps you watching the video longer. I don't know. But I am just gonna go chronologically. So I will try to highlight some things that I'm really excited about each book. So this might be a little bit of a longer video. So grab a snack, sit back, and let's get into it. And I'm gonna move over just a little bit so that way I can plop up the lovely image of each book on the screen here. So the first book that I'm gonna be talking about is called Blood, Iron, and Bone by Sarah Fox. This one caught my eye mostly because the cover is stunning. I love the like natural elements of it with the greens and the wood and the bees. It's all really pretty. This one is coming out on March 21st. It is the first book in the Lightbringer series. This one is about Aurelia, who's a mortal girl. She hears a strange call in the night and is compelled to answer this call. In another world, we have Andar, who is betrothed to the future High Queen of Aethrim, and he can't understand why his supposed fated mate looks so right but just feels so wrong. This is supposed to capture fans of Rebecca Yarros, Sarah J. Maas, Holly Black, and Jennifer L. Armentrout. It's some sort of epic fantasy romance that features fated mates, found family, chosen ones, and it's prophesized to break a darkness that threatens everything. All those little buzzwords definitely have me really intrigued to start a new fantasy series and see if it's something that I might really enjoy. The next book that we have coming out on March 25th is This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. So after the unexpected death of her father, Jane Sharp, who's a college student, is looking for a distraction from her grief. She ends up becoming obsessed with true crime and befriends this like armchair detective who teaches her to hunt killers from afar. Through this like weird relationship that she made through the internet, she ends up finding like friendship and purpose in life and even glory. So when this really shocking news about the death of 3 college girls goes public, Jane and her friends are determined to figure out what's going on with the case. She's like determined to put the evidence together, beat the police. Jane and her friends start to find answers that only beg more questions, and she starts to suspect that the killer might actually be smarter and more prolific than anyone that they've ever encountered before. So this sounds like it's gonna be a really fun true crime goose chase kind of thing. Like we're gonna be on the edge of our seats, and I'm here for it. Next up is a book coming out on March 25th called Root Rot. This is by Saskia Nislow. It is actually a horror novella short story kind of collection. The synopsis says, come meet the liar, the secret keeper, the crybaby, and the rest. So there's 9 children who are traveling with their families to their grandfather's vacation property, and strange things start to happen. Eyes start blinking from the bottom up, mushrooms ooze blood, people's faces don't hang right anymore. This is already starting to sound like really creepy. Transformations start to warp the children's sense of time and place, and the very island that they're on seems to start like encroaching upon them. So this story says that it explores predatory family dynamics, the boundaries of body and home, and how individuals choose to participate in or push back against structures that would harm them. And I'm here for a horror book. I'm here for the creepy, so I'm very excited to get into this. I might actually read this sooner than later. Next up, I have a romance book that's kind of blending into like the fantasy world. So this book comes out March 25th. It is called Original Sinner by Kate Ballinger. It is the first of the Original Sinners series. The tagline is what got me. The cover itself also got me. It says 7 deadly and ultra rich sins rule New York City. And though she came here to escape her past, one woman's true path to freedom might be the devil's bonds in this scorching hot romantasy from Kate Ballinger. It's gonna be some sort of dark romantasy, paranormal romance going on. This looks like a book that's right up my alley. I'm obsessed with things that are like sins and gods and some sort of storytell and romance all thrown in. I'm again here for this book. Very excited for this one. Another book that I've seen on quite a few people's anticipated releases is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This comes out on April 1st, and no, it is not an April Fool's joke. This is obviously a romance book. This is going to be the Host for Pros book club pick for April, as well as the Tortured Readers book club. So we've decided to merge our book clubs for April and have one big weekend of sprinting. I did get this book as an ARC through NetGalley. What makes my copy even more special is that I got granted a wish through the Facebook group. So if you're not following Abby Jimenez on Facebook, she actually does like secret NetGalley ARC giveaway wish thingies, and I got one of the wishes. The synopsis is actually really funny because it's not actually related to the book. The reason why you can't find the book in the first place when you look for Abby's book before it gets released on NetGalley is because they changed the name. So for example, instead of the book being called Say You'll Remember Me, it's called Say You'll Remember the Facebook group. And there's a really funny synopsis that goes with it. So I'm gonna read you this. It says, from the #1 NetGalley most requested author of Just for the Facebook group comes a second NetGalley wish campaign in the hopes to not break this website. We're totally serious. Please don't break this website. A cat without a butthole brings 2 unlikely people together, a surly vet who looks like Reese and a savvy mustard social media manager. They have an unforgettable first date, but circumstances force them apart. Can they go the distance even when life has other plans? On a more serious note, if you would like to read the content guidance, we have included that below. And then it does kind of go on to talk about the content warnings. So this book contains detailed descriptions of someone with advanced dementia. There's mentions of a cheating spouse, of a side character, mention of past child abuse, both physical and emotional, mention of animal abuse, cruelty, neglect, and death. There's a scene where a dog is in peril. The dog doesn't die. The main character's dog will never die. A sudden off-page death of a side character with a heart condition. So what really attracted me to this book and another book that you'll see that's part of my anticipated releases is the fact that it talks about dementia. So if you didn't know, I'm a psychologist. One of my passions in psychology is dementia. So like assessing and working with people who have dementia, strokes, TBIs, anything like that. So this instantly drew me to this book because of that. I mean, other than the fact that it's Abby Jimenez, but I am so excited to read this book and cry. Basically, that's what Abby does to us. The next book also comes out on April 1st. It is the second in a series. It's called A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. I have sadly not read the first book in the series yet, which is The Tainted Cup, so I will be doing that ASAP. But this is part of the Shadow of the Leviathan series. I don't want to read the synopsis for the second book because I haven't read the first book yet, and I don't want to spoil the first book for myself. Not only am I anticipating reading the second book, I'm anticipating reading the first book. I was attracted to reading this book initially because I've heard so many people say such great things about The Tainted Cup, and I absolutely need to know. So I will have to get on this train ASAP before it leaves me behind. Another book coming out on April 1st is Sweet Obsession by Katy Robert. This is book 8 in the Dark Olympus series, so you may be familiar with this series if you've read Neon Gods. I have only read Neon Gods and I absolutely devoured it, so I would love to focus on this particular series this year so that way I can get to some of these books that I have requested that are not necessarily the second or third or the fourth in the series, but the 8th. This one looks like it's a modern Greek retelling of Poseidon and Icarus. I love how Katy Robert infuses romance, and not just romance, but like very sexy romance into these Greek retellings of stories. I will absolutely eat anything that Katy Robert puts out. Yet another book that comes out on April 1st is Faithbreaker. This is the third book in the God Killer series. So I was so generously gifted the first two books in this series by Koda. This is the first and second books in this series. I also am not going to read this synopsis or tell you anything about it because I haven't read the first two books. Can you see that I have a problem here? You see that I have not read certain books and then I keep requesting the third. Sometimes it's genuinely because I don't know, but sometimes it's because I know I'm gonna like something and when it comes out, I wanna have it. So I'm going to be reading this entire series in April. I will be caught up on this train real soon. One more book that comes out on April 1st is Deadstream by Mar Ramasco Moore. This is a YA horror mystery thriller kind of book. So what intrigued me about this book was it said Rear Window meets The Ring in this sinister YA thriller in which a teen girl witnesses the live streamed murder of a popular online streamer by a paranormal entity and could be its next victim. Like, that sounds creepy and horrific and exciting at the same time. This next book should be no surprise to you if you saw how much I was obsessed over Phantasma in 2024. So on April 8th, we have the second book in the Wicked Games series called Enchantra coming out. This book is by Kaylee Smith, and this is going to be following the sister of the girl in the first book. So this is going to be following Genevieve Grimm. We know that the male love interest is Rowan Silver. It's going to be some sort of labyrinthy type of game packed with deadly intrigue, spicy romance. We're going to have feisty heroines, morally gray love interest, fake dating, forbidden desire, family secrets. Basically, if you love Carrie Maniscalco, Carissa Broadbent, Lauren Roberts, this is going to be your type of vibe. On April 15th, tax day, we have Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. If you recall, I read a book by Sayaka Murata called Earthlings, and I loved that book. It was so weird and so creepy, but I loved it. So I was excited to try out another book by this author. This is labeled as a general fiction kind of book, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of like falling under the category of weird girl lit. But it says it's a story set in a version of Japan where sex between married couples have vanished and all children are born by artificial insemination. That sounds really intriguing to me and I'm here for it. I'm here for weird girl lit always. Also on April 15th, we have The Ashfire King by Chelsea Abdullah. This is the second book after The Stardust Thief. I read that book I think a couple of years ago at this point, and I've been patiently awaiting for this book to come out because I really enjoyed the first book. This book is about a merchant and a prince who are trapped in the crumbling realm of Jinn and must figure out how to save one world and return to their own. So things that really intrigued me about this book were not only the cover, not only that I've been patiently awaiting, but I really liked the magic in this world. I liked the characters. I loved the story, the overall plot line, the journey that we went on. So I'm hoping that the couple of years that we had to wait for this book to come out is worth the wait. On April 22nd, we have Murder Between Friends by Liz Lawson coming out. This is a YA mystery thriller. So in this story, Grace, Henry, and Allie grew up together on the same block. They used to be best friends until Grace's testimony put Henry's brother Jake away for killing their English teacher. Now 2 years later, Allie and Henry hate Grace, and Grace is doubting what she thinks she saw that night. This is going to be a race against time where Jake's new trial is being set and he feels like he's going to be found guilty again. They said that he was guilty the first time even though he didn't commit this crime, and won't be found innocent unless there's some new evidence that comes to light. So the three individuals are going to have to decide whether you can trust an old friend or whether they're your enemy. On April 29th, Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones is getting republished. This is a horror where we go through a young boy's haunted home. It says times have been tough for 12-year-old Junior, his mom, and especially for his younger brother Dino. When his dad makes a surprise visit late one night, Junior is desperate to make him part of the family again, but the only problem is that their dad drowned 8 years ago. So bringing back the dead always comes at a cost. This sounds super creepy and super exciting, and I might actually be reading this one sooner rather than later as well. Another book that I've seen in a couple of anticipated releases videos is Enigma by Runix. It is a steamy, dark academia romance that has some elements of Hades and Persephone mixed up into this. There's some sort of secrets involved, whether they're being uncovered or whether whether they're being kept, hidden agendas, rivals to lovers, all these little buzzwords, and the cover looking gorgeous are what really interested me in reading this book. Another book that I'm going to be reading sooner rather than later is Broken Souls and Bones by L.J. Andrews. This is being published by Berkeley. It looks like it's a romantasy of some sort. So Lyra intended to live a quiet life to avoid the attention of the magic-obsessed king in the Fortress of Stonegate, until Rorik Ashwood, who is the prince's silent guard and rumored killer for the crown, invades her village and uncovers the truth behind the silver scars in her eyes. To save her best friend from death, she's forced to reveal her abilities and is immediately claimed by the crown as the next Melder. To be the king's Melder is to be revered and feared in equal measures, but above all, it's a slow death sentence. Lyra is determined to find a way to free herself and her friends from bondage, but she must first get more information from the silent brooding sentry who first took her captive. As Lyra gets closer to Rorik, she soon learns he's nothing like she's assumed, and in fact, everything she needs. The more they work as allies, the harder it becomes to ignore the growing passion between them. After a sinister truth is revealed, Rorik and Lyra must choose to stand against all they know or accept their dark destiny. This sounds so good, and I'm so excited to be buddy reading this with Katy later this month. Another fun book coming out on April 29th is a mystery thriller by Samantha M. Bailey called Hello, Juliet. It's a dark thriller where a TV reunion brings co-stars back together for drama and betrayals, but this time the stakes are deadly, so kind of think like Love is Blind, but make it thriller. I actually haven't read a book by Samantha M. Bailey yet, but I do own a couple of this author's books, so I was very intrigued to get into this and see what it's about and just really get into the drama of reality TV stars and make it deadly. Like, that sounds so fun to me. Okay, we're finally into May. So the next book that we have is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. This comes out on May 6th. This is a general fiction book that is about 4 teenagers whose friendship creates a bond so powerful that it changes a complete stranger's life 25 years later. This sounds like a book that's definitely going to be very much character driven, and while it's going to have some plot going on, I will be probably obsessed with the character progression, the character growth, everything to do about this friendship and what happens with this stranger that they supposedly change their life. So fortunately, the next book that comes out on May 6th is a book where I've actually read the first in the series, and I'm very excited for the second book to come out. So the first book that I read is called Snow Globe. This is by Soo Young Park. This one really sold me because it said Hunger Games meets Squid Game in this dystopian thriller. I had a great time with it. I think I landed on 3.5. It is much more YA, so that could have been a little bit why my rating was a little lower than I anticipated. Book 2 is called Snow Globe 2, and it is going to be continuing on from the first book. I don't want to tell you too much about what happened in the first book, but basically we have in this big snow globe a world where everybody is assigned a different role or a different task, and the residents within the snow globe itself have like fame, fortune, and above all safety, but everybody who lives outside the snow globe doesn't have those same safeties to fall back on. The main character from the first book actually really resembles one of the elites from the snow globe and is taken to assume her life from outside of the snow globe in the snow globe. So it's following her story, and it's very, very interesting. So I'm really curious to see where the rest of the series is going to go, because book 1 kind of ended on a cliffhanger. So it'll be nice to see what happens to that character. This next book I'm very, very excited for. It's probably one of the top anticipated books that I have. This one's coming out May 13th. It's Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This is going to be the 3rd book in the Skyland series. So the first book followed 2 of Hendrik's friends. I can't rave enough about this series. If you haven't read it, what are you waiting for? Because like, you need to read it. But this one's gonna be following Hendrix, which if you've caught glimpses of Hendrix in the first 2 books, you know that she is hella funny, and she definitely doesn't need a man to keep her life afloat or interesting or anything. Hendrix is just like this ambitious, driven, goal-oriented woman who, like I said, is hella funny. She's humorous. She just seems like the it girl. Up until now, she hasn't found a man that can really keep up with her and her it girl lifestyle. So there's a tech mogul named Maverick Bell who is essentially like the forbidden fruit that she can't have. For some reason, he is off limits to her, and I don't quite know why. But when Maverick gives chase, pursuing her, spoiling her, understanding her, is it time to let herself have something more? So we all know that Kennedy Ryan writes these very deeply emotional, intricate characters who make you feel like you know these people. Like, they're not just words on a page, but they're true inner feelings coming out, and they just make you feel so empowered. Like, she'll rip your heart out and then she'll build you back up. And I love when an author can do that. Kennedy Ryan is honestly the GOAT of romance, for real. Like, actually, we have two GOATs of romance. We have Kennedy Ryan and we have Abby Jimenez. How could you go wrong with either of these authors? Next up on May 13th is another romance, but this one is a little bit more of a paranormal romance. So this is A Charming Touch of Tarot by Melissa Holtz. What really got me was the cover with the little spooky ghost coming out. Super cute. But this one says it's for friends who discover that their new magical skills may not be enough to save them from a stalker hellbent on turning their lives upside down. So we're gonna get some sort of paranormal romance in this book, as well as some friendship, but there's also like a little bit of mystery to this book. So don't know what it's about too much, but I'm very excited to read it and bring a little bit of the spooky season into the spring. May 20th, we have Catherine Center's The Love Haters. So Catherine Center is another auto by author for me. She puts out banger after banger. This one follows Katy Vaughn, who has been burned by love in the past, and now she's about to light her career on fire. She's got two choices: either wait to get laid off from her job as a video producer, or at her coworker's request, take a gig that might actually launch her career into like this life-changing moment, where she's gonna be profiling this Coast Guard rescue swimmer, Tom Hutchison, aka Hutch. The only problem here is that it's in Key West and Katy can't swim. So I'm sure there's going to be some swim lessons, some bathing suits, some tropical drinks of some sort, and a little bit of romance thrown in to make this a laugh out loud, funny rom-com time. So the next book that we have is by Mia Sheridan, also on May 20th. This one says, when the world is plunged into darkness, who would you turn to? Amid the sun-drenched orange groves of California, childhood friends Tuck Mattis and Emily Swanson shared a bond that seemed unbreakable until life ripped them apart. 13 years later, Emily is a rising pop sensation in need of security, and Tuck is a brooding ex-con in need of a fresh start. When fate brings them together once again, Emily hires him on as her new bodyguard. They butt heads and they bicker just like the old days, yet neither can deny the heat that's rekindling between them. But a cataclysmic solar flare disrupts the electrical grid. Society is suddenly plunged into darkness and chaos. For Emily, the familiar comforts of fame and fortune just begin to crumble. For Tuck, this is his stark new reality that could be the chance for him to like finally prove himself. As they come to terms with everything that they've lost and the bitterness that's kept them apart, they must find their way back to one another and discover a new place under the sun. This has tropes of child best friends turned enemies to lovers, slow burn romance, second chances, pop star bodyguard, and it is a mashup of the show The Last of Us meets Carly Fortune's Every Summer After. So it's kind of like an interesting mashup, I suppose. Another romance book that now takes us to the F1 racing arena is Not So Fast by Karen Booth. This is a spicy enemies to lovers Formula One racing romance. I will admit that I don't read a lot of F1 racing romance books, but I'm interested to read more because the only one I read was by Lauren Asher and that didn't really hit for me, but I don't want to completely write off the subgenre of romance as a whole. So I would love to get a little bit into F1 racing a little bit more, and I want to say that the racetrack is not the only thing with curves in this story. I want to say this might have some plus size rep, which will be very interesting and intriguing. And also the cover of this book looks really fun and vibrant, and I love and I'm attracted to very fun and vibrant covers. I'm hoping this is a great time. The next book comes out on May 27th, and I'm very excited for it because this whole series is based on retellings. So I read the first book in the series, The North Wind by Alexandria Warwick. This was a Beauty and the Beast, Hades and Persephone retelling. I ate the shit up. I gave it 5 stars. Then she puts out The West Wind, which is a dark reimagining of Forbidden Love, inspired by Greek mythology heroes Leander and the Scottish ballad Tamlin. So I haven't actually read this one yet, but I know I'm going to love it because I am obsessed with like Greek mythology retellings. So I don't think it's going to be any surprise that I'll be very interested in The South Wind. If I had to pick 5, this is on my top 5 anticipated releases for the spring. But The South Wind. So can you see a theme going? North, west, south. Well, what do you think the 4th book is going to be? The East Wind. So I don't know what that one's about yet, but The South Wind is a sizzling standalone fantasy romance of second chance love, which is inspired by Sleeping Beauty and the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. Perfect for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Jennifer L. Armentrout, Scarlett St. Clair, and Raven Kennedy. So if you like any of those authors and you want to give a new and emerging author a try, might I suggest these books? And also look how gorgeous these covers are. Like, you see they sparkle, they glow, they're fantastic. Like, they're so pretty. The South Wind being purple just looks freaking beautiful. Speaking of retellings, the next book that comes out on June 3rd is Worth Fighting For by Jessie Q. Sutanto. So this is part of the Meant to Be collection that's inspired by Disney stories. This one is a Mulan retelling. So basically the story is following a girl named Mulan, and she's ready to get down to business, but when it comes to love, she hasn't got a clue. I would love to go into this one blind and see how similar it is going to be to the Disney story of Mulan. But yeah, I'm assuming this is going to be a little bit more of a contemporary romance because I'm seeing some little snippets of the synopsis here where she's working in a business-oriented world. She's having to prove herself twice as hard that she's just as good as a man. She has to basically fit in a man's world, but we don't have like fighting involved. We have more of a business setting involved. The next book I actually just got approved for. This one comes out on June 17th, and I haven't read the other book that is by this author, but I have some friends who absolutely loved this author's debut novel, The Measure. So this one is called The Poppy Fields by Nikki Erlich. This is listed as a high concept speculative novel about heartache, hope, and human resilience. This explores grief and healing and really gets individuals to find the answers to their questions about how do we heal in the wake of a great loss? How far are we willing to go to be healed? Like, what are you willing to do to grow through what you go through, essentially? And I think that is like a perfect saying, given that the cover is poppy flowers and just growing through what you go through, no matter what kind of grief or sad times it might be. So I'm assuming this is going to be some sort of a 5-star prediction. I really hope I'm right because I would love to read more by this author, and I might actually try to do like a dedicated vlog to reading Nikki Erlich's books because I'm excited to see if this is an author that I could really love and really get attached to and get excited to read more of their books. Okay, another auto-buy author for me is Taylor Jenkins Reid, and she's got a new book finally coming out on June 3rd. This one is called Atmosphere. It's listed as general fiction, but it's a love story. This has something to do with NASA in the 1980s. We follow our main character, Joan Goodwin, who has been obsessed with the stars for as long as she can remember. She's been pretty content with her life as a physics and astronomy professor at Rice University. Joan ends up discovering an advertisement for women to join NASA's space shuttle program. Suddenly, Joan becomes one of the first people to go into space. She is selected from thousands of people who have applied in the 1980s and begins training at Houston's Johnson Space Center alongside with a bunch of other people who got selected. We have Top Gun pilot Hank Redmond, scientist John Griffin, who is kind and easygoing even when the stakes are highest, mission specialist Lydia Danes, who has worked too hard to play nice, warm-hearted Donna Fitzgerald, who is navigating her own secrets, and finally Vanessa Ford, the magnetic and mysterious aeronautical engineer who can fix any engine and fly any plane. This sounds like a fantastic lineup of people. They obviously all become friends, and Joan finds passion and a love she's never imagined. In this new light, Joan begins to question everything she thinks she knows about her place in the observable universe. In December 1984, on a mission, it all changes in an instant. So I'm very curious to see what Taylor Jenkins Reid is going to do with this story. This sounds so good. I mean, mean, we have Kristen Hanna, who wrote a bunch of amazing books, but she blurbed this as thrilling, heartbreaking, uplifting, and fast-paced. It's an emotionally charged story of one ambitious young woman finding both her voice and her passion. Like, this sounds like it's going to be a really good time. Switching gears a little bit, we have on June 10th, S.A. Cosby's King of Ashes coming out. This is a Southern crime, epic and dazzling family drama. I'm gonna read you the synopsis for this one because I literally just heard about this one, but anything S.A. Cosby puts out, I will read. When eldest son Roman Carruthers is summoned home after his father's car accident, he finds his younger brother Dante in debt to dangerous criminals and his sister Nevaeh, exhausted from holding the family and the family business together. Nevaeh and their father, who run the Carruthers crematorium in the rundown central Virginia town of Jefferson Run, see death up close every day. But mortality draws even closer when it becomes clear that the crash that landed their father in a coma was no accident, and Dante's recklessness has placed them all in real danger. Roman, a financial whiz with a head for numbers and a talent for making his clients rich, has some money to help buy his brother out of trouble. But in his work with wannabe tough guys, he's forgotten that there are real gangsters out there. As his bargaining chips go up in smoke, Roman realizes that he has only one thing left to offer to save his brother, himself, and his own particular set of skills. Roman begins his work for the criminals while Nevaeh tries to uncover the long ago mystery of what happened to their mother, who disappeared when they were teenagers. But Roman is far less of a pushover than the gangsters realize. He's willing to do anything to save his family. Anything. Because everything burns. This sounds like it's going to be a really gripping story, and I'm very excited to see what S.A. Cosby immerses us into in this Godfather-inspired Southern crime story. It's sure to be a really interesting read. And I think we've made it to the last book that I am anticipating, which is coming out on June 10th. This is called Realm of Thieves by Karina Halley. I think it's a romantasy of some sort, but it says two thieves vie for dominance in the illegal dragon egg trade, putting both their lives and their hearts on the line in this scorching romantasy. Well, that just answered my question. This sounds like it's going to be between Brynla, who lives a life of crime in order to survive and is probably stealing these dragon eggs for some higher purpose, and she's going to most likely run into the male love interest, which is Lord Ander, and I'm assuming he might own the eggs. But it looks like both of these characters will clash at every turn, sparking heat in ways that they've never felt before. It's going to be dangerous political games of rivaling dynasties. There's going to be flames and dragons, betrayal and secrets. All buzzwords that I'm looking forward to. And with that, I think that those are 30 of my most anticipated releases for spring 2025. This was actually really fun to do. It's like really exciting to see what fresh reads are going to be coming up. And I love seeing everybody else's anticipated reads because they're all different. Every one of us is like just a different kind of reader. We're excited for different things. We are all drawn to different genres. I'm much more eclectic in what I like. I primarily do read romance and dark romance, but I like to say that I'm dabbling into romantasy a little bit more this year. I am definitely dipping my toe more into horror, and I do find that the strings of mystery thriller are still trying to pull me back to them, although it's not what I primarily read a lot these days. But I'm willing to read quite a bit of stuff. Generally, the weirder the better for me, and the spicier usually the better for me as well. If you are interested in reading any of these books, let me know because maybe we can set up a buddy read for some of them. I'm looking forward to each and every one of these books coming out, and I can't wait to see if I find any 5 stars out of them. If you got to the end of this video and you have nothing else to say, leave me some sort of fire emoji or flame, just because I'm hoping that these anticipated releases bring the heat, bring the fire, are just very hyped up reads, but for good reason. So I want to have a really good book, a hot book. But don't forget to hit the like button before you go. And I appreciate you all for clicking on today's video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!